Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm doing a live stream on YouTube on the smaller channel. I am doing this on February 27th. I'll also be re-releasing this on all the channels. Just to remind you, please subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 YouTube channels: Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. The links are going to be in the description. I have to update that section. But the links will be in the description of this video and all my videos. So please make sure that you subscribe. And also, please help support my work. It's through people that donate and look at the products that I have that help to support my work. I have thousands of videos for free. So please go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. Again, I have thousands of videos for free that talk about subjects like this, subjects that could be a warning sign for a future event. All right. So what I want to do is do a cursory view of what has been discussed in mainstream media about the Congo and this mysterious illness. All right. This has been going on for a little while, but let's go through this. Now, there was some claims a few weeks ago about samples being tested and showing that it was influenza A. All right, but that could have been a different outbreak, because I haven't been really paying that much attention to the Congo with this mysterious illness. Probably should spend more time on it, but I'm a busy person. But I'm going to go over this and give you my perspective on what I think is happening. All right. So let's first play CBC one day ago, their broadcast.
Illnesses overseas, it has health officials very, very concerned. At least 431 cases of this unnamed illnesses are reported in 2 villages in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. What we know so far, 53 patients have died, some of them within the first 48 hours of first showing symptoms. CBS News medical contributor Dr. Singh Gounder is editor-at-large for public health at KFF Health News, and she's with us this morning. We're very glad you're here for this. What is happening here, Singh? What is it?
So we're seeing 2 different outbreaks in Western Congo, very rural part of the country. We don't even know if these 2 outbreaks are related to each other, but what has many public health officials concerned is hearing that some of these kids who died consumed a bat carcass. Bats raise the specter of infections like Ebola, Marburg, also coronaviruses. So that's why there's been a lot of concern. Now, the testing so far for Ebola and infections like that has come back negative.
Yeah.
But there have been a number of positive tests for malaria. We're still not sure if this is all just malaria, but that's what all signs are pointing to.
But you got me with the bat carcass.
All right. So that just sparked a memory here. So a few weeks ago, I remember there was some mysterious illness, and I thought it came back as influenza. It wasn't influenza, it was malaria. All right, that's right. Okay. So I was mistaken early on in this video. So it was malaria that it was found to be, not influenza A. Okay. All right, so that's an important data point. There was an outbreak, they didn't know what it was, and it ended up being malaria. Okay.
They're eating bats. I mean, that just sounds so
But
barbaric.
bushmeat is common in
It's
East
common.
Africa.
It is
yes.
common.
And it is a way that it has been a vector for infectious diseases like this.
Yeah, I hate of any animal, the one that freaks me out the most, frankly, is bats, because they carry so many different infectious diseases. And so, that kind of exposure is very scary to us. But you're talking about a part of the world that has very weak health systems, very poor.
The reason why you have to worry about bats is because they're mammals, all right? And they have certain receptors that are very similar to ours. but different enough where crossover isn't super common, but they, with mutations, can lead to certain crossovers. So a weak affinity to a human receptor and a strong affinity to, let's say, a bat receptor is not uncommon, right? So it's the reservoir. It's a reservoir of vectors, but also that similarity of some receptors. That's a problem. But it's different enough, but it allows for mutations to take hold that potentially could lead to human-to-human transmission.
Where sometimes this is what people have to resort to for subsistence.
So Congo is an ocean away from here, but how worried should we be here about what's going on there coming?
The importance here is to make sure we figure out what is causing it and that we tamp it down there, that we don't allow whatever this is to spread, because that's when it becomes a concern for the rest of us.
So the president signed an executive order to pull the United States out of the World Health Organization. He also ordered the CDC to cut off communication with the World Health Organization. I think sometimes when people wonder about what's happening, you said it's a world away. Explain how cuts to something like this could affect us here if we don't have resources on the ground, not only there, but also here for Americans.
Well, we've seen cuts to the CDC and USAID, both of which are agencies that respond on the ground in these kinds of situations. So it's concerning that we've decreased our manpower to respond. I am told that the CDC country director does remain in country and the DRC, but that many of their staff have been pulled because of unrest in the region. So we don't have the normal manpower we would have. The CDC does have the authority to speak in one-on-one conversations with people at WHO in an emerging situation like this. But one of the things that WHO provides is a way for US experts to come into countries, particularly countries that are suspicious of US involvement. When you're part of a multinational team, it really does allow that kind of involvement.
It's scary to hear dying within 48 hours of the symptoms. What are the symptoms? And what is the CDC saying about the outbreak? But what are the symptoms?
Yeah, so symptoms like headache, nausea, vomiting, fever, diarrhea, some bleeding from the nose, as well as with the vomiting and diarrhea, some of that has been bloody. Again, those are symptoms that make us worried about things like Ebola, but malaria can cause that too. And the other thing, it's not clear if these people are actually dying within 48 hours or they're just coming to the attention of healthcare, really at death's door.
Okay, Dr. GETTR, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I think it's the latter, not the former. Now, the key here is one data point. Prior outbreak, didn't know what it was. It proved to be malaria. I thought it was influenza A, but okay, it's malaria. Now, these other outbreaks, unknown. Now, there's a high probability that it might actually be malaria. But the thing is why is it taking so long to find out what's going on with these patients? All right, so there's 431 cases reported in Congo with a mysterious illness. Now, I think a subset of those are the malaria, but is there something else happening? So, all right, so let's go to times now. All right, let's skip that because it's only music and text. All right, we won.
A deadly unknown illness has killed about 53 people in northwestern DR Congo in just 5 weeks, with the doctors warning that it is spreading fast and has a high fatality rate. Now, the outbreak started on the 21st of January in Bonoko after 3 children ate a bat and then died within just 48 hours. Soon afterwards, others in the community began falling ill. The disease spread rapidly, and by the 9th of February, a second wave of cases emerged in Bomate. Since then, about 419 cases have been recorded. The symptoms include high fever, vomiting, and severe internal bleeding. The most patients died within just 48 hours of showing symptoms, and lab tests of the samples sent to a medical institute have ruled out Ebola, Marburg, or other common hemorrhagic fevers. However, some cases have tested positive for malaria, though experts say that this does not fully explain the outbreak and its magnitude. The WHO has warned that outbreaks linked to wildlife consumption are on the rise, with such incidents in Africa increasing by over 60%
Okay.
in the last.
All right. So is it possible that the fourth cocktail is released in the Congo? Is it, remember what the fourth cocktail was? A merger between influenza and SARS-CoV-2. That's the fourth cocktail. Fifth cocktail is SARS-CoV-2 with HIV. Proteins of HIV, not just homology and spike. So fifth cocktail is actually respiratory HIV. And so when they're doing the testing for normal hemorrhagic fever, normal hemorrhagic diseases, it's testing negative, so it must be something different. But it has similar a similar symptom or symptoms to hemorrhagic viruses. So the two big ones that we have to worry about are Marburg and Ebola. But they test negative for those. Now I'm thinking free flowing here. All right. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just thinking whatever's popping in my mind, I'm saying. So the question is, was the fourth cocktail released? Some subsets are been attributed to malaria. Bad case malaria could have similar symptoms. Was there some sort of mutation, manipulation in malaria? Think about it. Okay, think about this. Why are respiratory pathogens so important in biowarfare? Because you can breathe it in, and it's easy to pass, human to human. It's also easy to contract. Just put them in an environment where this is in the air or on surfaces or whatever. But a vector like mosquitoes in the summer or in regions that are like the Congo are always problematic and very easy to infect people. So if a disease is in these mosquitoes and they are bit, then they are getting some sort of virus, maybe even a bacterium, but most likely a virus from that vector. All right, so you have two different mechanisms. One is a pulmonary, you breathe it in, and another is that you're bit by a mosquito. Now, this is a question, did they play around with mosquitoes that have a gain of function with a certain type of virus? Or did they actually use some of these mosquitoes for an inoculation program? Because that's not out of the realm of possibility, because Bill Gates has been talking about using mosquitoes for inoculations. And that something happened where it actually created a negative externality. So those are the thoughts that are in my head right now. Mosquito. Something very similar to hemorrhagic diseases. But it should be easier to detect if you know to look for malaria from the other subset of patients. Why aren't they detecting it, the malaria in the larger population of these patients easier? Because they know what to look for. So why is there a disconnect? Is that because they just don't have testing? Is that because it's not malaria? Is it a lot of questions there? But I get the sense that there's something about mosquitoes and a as a vector for a hemorrhagic disease. What it is, I don't know. Could be supercharged something. Or perhaps with the fourth cocktail, the manifestation is a hemorrhagic disease. We don't know. What if you combined influenza and a beta coronavirus together? Do you create the same symptoms that you would see in an Ebola patient? We don't know.
Okay. The Democratic Republic of Congo has been battling multiple disease outbreaks, including mpox, typhoid, and malaria. This last year, another mystery illness that killed about 143 people that was later suspected to be malaria.
Suspected to be malaria.
And our correspondent, Louisa Olani,
Suspected to be malaria. Has it been proven to be malaria? See, what I remember a few weeks ago was it was malaria. But if you read into the details, is it suspected malaria or proven malaria? Those are two totally different things. There's a lot of unknown going on there.
Recent health concerns in DRC have once again raised alarm over the consumption of wild animals in parts of Africa, with experts linking it to the spread of infectious diseases. The recent mystery disease that has killed 50 people with over 500 affected in Congo is said to have emanated from the consumption of bats by 3 children. Wild bushmeat remains a key source of protein for men.
Okay, so the story is all right. Story that's coming out is that it's with bushmeat bats. Another data point to look at is that Dr. Shi released that paper this month about HKU5 CoV2 mutations that have the furin cleavage and is a combination like SARS-2 and NL63, which is an alpha coronavirus. So you have one group of people that thought it was malaria, suspected malaria. Then you have another group that seems to be a big outbreak that's tied to eating bats. And there's lots of different viruses that are in bats. So this is more moving towards maybe they actually ate something that has a vector, has a virus that has similarities to hemorrhagic, but it's not Ebola, not Marburg, and other viruses that may be similar. But then there's potentially something different than malaria. I can't prove it, but there is a probability that's starting to emerge that feels like fourth cocktail. There's something that is like coronaviruses, but also like influenza. The question is did they really get it from a bat? Independent of the fourth cocktail, did these people really get it from a bat, or did they get it through some sort of release? Is it natural? I guess the point I'm making is it natural phenomena and they contracted it? Or was it released? Now, you could have released a bat or a series of bats in a region that are infected with a lab manipulated pathogen. Maybe fourth cocktail, who knows? But a lab manipulated pathogen in bats and released into a population. And then it spreads. But it spreads really well when you are actually consuming or very, very close to these animals. So if you're just going to release them into a region, you may not actually get a good crossover from the animal to humans. So is it possible that they did a lab manipulation, blame it on the bats, and it's really something released to the population? And it has similarities to malaria, has similarities to Ebola. But it's not Marburg, it's not Ebola. I think dengue fever also is hemorrhagic. Something doesn't. We just got to collect data points right now because something doesn't make sense.
Scientists warn of the potential dangers of disease transmitted from animals to humans, urging stronger regulations and public awareness of certain actions. The current situation underscores the challenges faced by the DRC's healthcare system, which is already contending with multiple health crises, including mpox and cholera outbreaks. Efforts are underway to contain this latest outbreak and to implement measures to prevent further spread. From Lagos, Nigeria, the visa for Ladi, this one.
For all the latest news, download the Beyond app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Jack typed in the chat. All right, today is not going to be like the typical day. All right, today is I'm tearing up the script, throwing it out the window, and things are going to be different today. All right. Jack typed into the chat about Barrick and Dazik being involved in Ebola. Jack, can you do me a favor? Tell me the paper or some sort of primary source that shows Ebola research by Barrick. If you can send me the link or the title of the paper or something, I would greatly appreciate it. Another thing that pops in my head here is that there is a deep state or there is a group of people that do not want Trump in power. So if you create another crisis that took down his first administration, it might take down his second administration. And I've been saying that there's a 9/11-like event coming because the national security state doesn't want to be restructured and lose power. Now, I didn't think that they would do the same. Normally, when they do these things, they don't do the same thing. When they make these events, when they do these events, they're not going to, they don't run the same play on the field. It's different. Like, for example, you have the Twin Towers getting hit. That was 9/11, right? Or, the Gulf of Tonkin. There was, that was a false flag with a ship. There was the release in 2020. So there's usually, they do something, but it's usually different. My gut feelings is that they would continue on that difference of, running different plays on the football field. Then you run the same play. There seems to be a lower probability that they would release another pathogen to take down the Trump administration. Something's not right. Something's not right.
Mystery illness has been identified in the northwest region of the Democratic Republic of Congo since late January of this year. There have been at least 419 cases, and 53 people have passed away from this mystery illness, with a case fatality rate of about 12.3%. Most people who pass away have symptoms for 48 hours and then rapidly decline. It includes fever, vomiting, fatigue, and bleeding. It looks like a hemorrhagic fever disease that we see with viruses such as Marburg virus or Ebola, but initial testing has been negative for these known viruses. Investigators from the World Health Organization traced the origins of this outbreak to a village called Boloko, where 3 children under the age of 5 ate a bat and passed away. Keep in mind that a mystery illness was reported out of this country last December that turned out to be malaria. It is hard to figure out what these potential illnesses are right away, and it takes a lot of resources to go to remote areas where there's less resources to get the proper testing and treatment in order to contain whatever is going on. But if there's something that I learn more about, I will let you know in future posts, so make sure that you're following me to stay informed. I want to make sure that I can reassure you that there is no evidence that there is a novel or new pathogen at this time with this news, but you're going to be hearing about this information from a lot of sources. I just want to make sure that you're aware it is unlikely at this time to be something that is new. Mystery illness has been...
So it's unlikely it's something new. So he's coming from the stance that is something in the reservoir that people probably have that have probably contracted before, but it's not common. Jack typed in the chat on the paper, but it doesn't specifically state the Ebola. I need anything out there that specifically states that Peter Daszak and Barrick worked on Ebola. I think Eco Health Alliance worked on Ebola, but I'm not sure if I'm not sure if Barrick worked on Ebola. But there was something that Barrick was working on with hemorrhagic, which was Marburg, I thought. But he didn't do a whole lot of research in Marburg. He was focused more on beta coronavirus, but he did do some research, I thought. All right, so let's continue on here.
Our last story tonight is from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Central African country is witnessing a new crisis, the outbreak of a mystery disease. No one knows what the illness really is, but it is spreading rapidly across the country. In about a month, there have been 431 cases and 53 people have died. So far, only 3 things are clear. First, in most cases, victims die within 48 hours. Second, the disease comes from a virus. And third, It all began after 3 children ate a bat. Our next report tells you more.
It all started on January 21st in the village of Boloko in the Democratic Republic of Congo. 3 children ate a bat. All 3 died within 48 hours. But this was just the beginning. The disease started spreading, and now, about 5 weeks later, the outbreak has affected at least 431 people and rapidly killed 53 people. Yet no one knows what this disease is. It's being called a mystery illness. Its symptoms include vomiting, diarrhea, body aches, and internal bleeding. The children who died from the illness bled from their nose and vomited blood. And in
It
most
could be
cases,
parasitic or it could be viral. That's my gut feeling. Now, it could be bacterial. They're ingesting something. Here's the problem. Okay, here's the facts. Assuming what they're saying is true, they eat something that has some sort of pathogen. Then they're vomiting, they're bleeding, they're having all these symptoms that are like Marburg. So that means that it's getting into their digestive tract and then causing havoc. Now, with hemorrhagic diseases, if you touch the vomit or mucus from the individual or the eyes of the individual, the tears from the individual, mucus, sputum, feces, blood, you can contract it. All right. That's why Ebola in Marburg is very easy to contract if you're actually in a hospital setting, especially in a rural environment like the Congo. And the containment centers aren't very well established. All right. So healthcare workers can get it. So this outbreak of Marburg that was happening in the Congo, a lot of the health workers were getting it because it's so easy to contract if you're dealing with the vomit and these other fluids that are coming from the patient. So that leads me to think that, well, it could be parasitic, or it could be, some sort of, hemorrhagic viral kind of thing. Is there something new that has been created? A cocktail. See, the cocktails that I've been focused on with Barrick was more with the 4th cocktail and the 5th cocktail as a respiratory illness. These are not respiratory illnesses. This is as if you touched the fluids of a patient or you ate the actual infected animal. So it's spreading like Marburg or Ebola. So this seems to be a hemorrhagic type virus / bioweapon. Most likely it's not something new because these regions aren't like going into the bush that's brand new and these bats are never been seen by mankind in the last 300 years. It's not that kind of situation. So either something new has been released, is released or something emerged in nature that's much different than Marburg or Ebola, because the testing's saying negative on Marburg and Ebola. So it has to be something different. Now, there's a probability that seems to, I'm leaning towards that this is something that has a closer lineage to Marburg, not respiratory. You're literally seeing me think in real time here. I mean, nothing's prepared. I don't like preparing for things anyways. I had someone that, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I had someone complain that my videos aren't high production material. It's not the video production that's important. It's what I say. That's the golden bar is what I say, not the post production. All right, so Jack typed in the text. All right, so ASIC investigates the transmission events of Ebola, red decline, right. All right, thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. So it's really more tied to EcoHealth Alliance and Ebola. So this is because it doesn't seem as though Barrick is involved with this. I'm trying to look this thing up here. Jack, can you send me the link? Can you send me the link of these, not just the DOI, because it's just too much of a pain to just copy paste and. -8. I don't want to have to go through COVID again. Like a COVID era again. I don't want to go through it. Fuck.
Death occurred within 48 hours, which makes this unknown disease really worrying. So doctors are scrambling to help patients recover. And while they don't know what the illness is yet, they say that the symptoms are that of a hemorrhagic fever. This is commonly linked to deadly viruses such as Ebola, dengue, Marburg, and yellow fever. Though these known viruses have been ruled out in the case of the DR Congo's current outbreak.
Ruling out hemorrhagic diseases, then it has to be something new. The chances of something brand new coming out of an environment that is on the edge of nature, but there's quite a bit of activity between them. If children are eating a bat, all right, then chances are that population has been exposed to many of these things already. All right, so what's the probability of something new, it being, brand new in nature? Well, they should have been exposed to it. So the question is there something released that is hemorrhagic? Now, releasing hemorrhagic virus doesn't, even though it's scary, you could die in 48 hours, it's not going, hemorrhagic diseases don't go pandemic because human transmission, even though it's high, it kills so fast that I never really worried about an Ebola pandemic or a Marburg pandemic. But if you can weaken it to a point where it doesn't kill so fast and it's easier to spread, and then later on it starts killing, then you have something that's more of a bioweapon. But hemorrhagics were like release and it dies out really quick. If you release pulmonary bioweapons, it reaches a larger population, especially if it has a high R naught value. So the infectivity of Marburg or a hemorrhagic virus is high, but it doesn't transmit through the population very well. It could go through the population really quick, the ones that have been exposed to the fluids. But the ones that are not exposed to the fluids, you have no problem. But with pulmonary, you just breathe the air, right? And you're next, you're in close proximity to people that are asymptomatic or symptomatic, and you can contract it, but never touch the person. So there's an easier way to infect the population with pulmonary situation versus a hemorrhagic situation. So it doesn't lend itself very well as a bioweapon to go pandemic. This seems like you contract it and you quickly get sick. It doesn't seem like you're asymptomatic and then get sick later. It seemed the question is, what is it? There's not that many hemorrhagic viruses, so we don't have a test of a sometimes there are, let's go back. There are lots of known viruses, lots of known parasites and all this stuff cataloged. But we don't necessarily have good clinical testing because they're rare types of pathogens. It's not normally in the ecosystem of humans. But what if one of these known viruses have crossed over into the human population, but we just don't have a clinical test for it, and therefore we don't know what it is until you create isolates, and then you sequence, and then boom, now you know what it is. So is it that it's a known virus, just no good clinical testing that has the same manifestations as Marburg or other hemorrhagic viruses? Something new. But if it's something new, is it natural or is it man-made? Lots of things are happening in the Congo. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on in the Congo. Why? It's geopolitical.
The one clue promises answers. The link to a bat. Viruses in bats are known to cause a number of diseases in humans. They are considered natural reservoirs for viruses like Ebola and Marburg, which are also the source of ongoing outbreaks in the region. Plus, a bat virus is increasingly considered a precursor to the COVID-19 virus, which shut down the world, impacted billions of people, and killed millions of victims. Now, about 2 years since the Wuhan virus pandemic ended, that painful memory continues to hang over the world. But this is not a new problem. Humans have always caught diseases from animals. Over the past 50 years, there have been a range of infectious diseases. For instance, the HIV/AIDS crisis of the 1980s originated from great apes. The avian flu pandemic of the early 2000s came from birds. In 2009, pigs gave us the swine flu pandemic. Now, after the COVID-19 pandemic, There are growing concerns about diseases jumping from animals to humans, and the risk of such cases is increasing. For instance, in Africa, the number of such outbreaks has surged by more than 60% over the last decade, and this phenomenon can be witnessed globally. Mostly thanks to deforestation, climate change, and habitat decline. These problems are forcing humans and animals into close contact.
So Jack,
When it comes
Jack,
to devastating diseases
Jack,
jumping between species,
that first DOI number doesn't come up very well. I need the paper. Just give me the link to the paper. No DOI, just give me a link to the paper so I can look at it. Because it sends me to, when I look for that number, it's sending me to a paper for Lancet that is about something totally different.
everything is good until it's not. Any virus can quickly become one of the most defining threats to humanity. So the world can only hope that the mystery virus in the DRC is not that.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Namaste, Mr. President.
How many people generally follow you in interviews?
Typically, in a month, we have viewers up to
God damn
150
it.
million. That's more than
This is 10 hours ago.
An unknown illness has killed 53 people in northwestern DR Congo in just 5 weeks, with doctors warning that it is spreading fast and has a high fatality rate.
Now, this outbreak started on the 21st of January in Boloko after 3 children ate a bat and died within 48 hours. Soon after, others in the community began falling ill. The disease spread quickly, and by the 9th of February, a second wave of cases emerged in Bomit. Since then, 419 cases have been recorded.
Symptoms include high fever, vomiting, severe internal bleeding. Most patients died within just 48 hours of showing symptoms. Lab tests on the samples sent to a medical.
Guys. When I think, I gotta go fast, all right? Really fast, because there's thoughts that are popping up in my head, all right? So if it's not working for sending links, I'm gonna give you an email, send the link in an email. But we got to think fast. That's the only way this is gonna work.
Institute have ruled out
I'm gonna replay this.
Marburg and other common hemorrhage. Unknown illness has killed 53 people in northwestern DR Congo in just 5 weeks, with doctors warning that it is spreading fast and has a high fatality rate.
Now, this outbreak started on the 21st of January in Boloko after 3 children ate a bat and died within 48 hours. Soon after, others in the community began falling ill. The disease spread quickly, and by the 9th of February, a second wave of cases emerged in Bomit. Since then, 419 cases have been recorded.
Symptoms include high fever, vomiting, severe internal bleeding, and most patients died within just 48 hours of showing symptoms. Lab tests on the samples sent to a medical institute have ruled out Ebola, Marburg, and other common hemorrhagic fevers. However, some cases tested positive for malaria, though experts say that this does not fully explain the outbreak.
Now, the WHO warns that outbreaks linked to wildlife consumption are on the rise, with such incidents in Africa increasing by over 60% in the last decade. The Democratic Republic of Congo has been battling multiple disease outbreaks, including mpox, typhoid, and malaria. Just last year, another mystery illness killed 143 people that was later suspected to be malaria.
Survivors of a devastating prison fire in the Democratic Republic of Congo have told the BBC they want justice but don't expect to get it. 132 women and 20.
And while fighting continues in the DRC's east, a mystery illness has killed over 50 people in the northwest part of the country. Now, this disease has been reported in the DRC's GETTR province. At least 50 deaths and 439 cases have been reported in just over 5 weeks. Now, what this disease and its causes remain unknown. The patient zeros, the illness was first reported in 3 children who reportedly ate a bat. All 3 died after severe fever. Now, some of the other symptoms included vomiting and internal bleeding. And what's most worrisome is that most deaths have occurred within 48 hours. Now, the World Health Organization has been alerted. It has called the DRC's mystery disease a significant threat to public health. It has also highlighted the lack of medical infrastructure and surveillance facilities to address the crisis in the area. Mystery illnesses are not new to the DRC. Last year in December, an unknown illness with some similar symptoms killed over 100 people. However, that disease later turned out to be a severe case of malaria. In fact, as per the WHO, the number of these types of outbreaks in Africa has surged by more than 60% in the last decade. But this time, concerns are over a disease that can jump from animals to humans, and scientists are yet to discover ways to prevent them. Now, needless to say, the last time such a disease spread, it altered the whole world. Is the world bracing for another Wuhan-like virus?
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
Thank you for being here.
Namaste, Mr. President.
Bharat Kilogan, Kumari Namaste.
How many people generally follow you in interviews?
Typically, in a month, we have a few.
A deadly and mysterious illness has claimed over 50 lives in northwestern Congo, sparking global concern. The disease, which causes severe fever, vomiting, and internal bleeding, has infected at least 419 people, with victims dying within 48 hours. Despite testing, experts have ruled out Ebola, Marburg, and other known viruses, raising fears of an unknown pathogen. The outbreak started after children ate bat meat, highlighting the risks of zoonotic diseases. The WHO is now racing to trace the source and contain the spread before it reaches beyond Congo's borders. Could this be the next global health threat?
A mysterious illness referred to as Disease X is spreading in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
All right, all right. This was 2 months ago when we were talking about flu-like. That was the reason why I was thinking that the suspected malaria cases were influenza A, because I was covering this like 2 months ago. So this is won 2 months ago, dealing with flu-like. Now, we know additional information, but let's just look back then, what was being published or in the news.
The disease has caused significant concerns due to its high infection and death rates. The World Health Organization is working to understand and contain the outbreak. Since October, Disease X has affected an estimated 406 individuals in the DRC. The illness has claimed 143 lives, most of them children. Local health authorities are providing these figures, highlighting the severity of the situation. Here's a report.
Congo's health authorities issued the alert saying the government is on maximum alert over a mystery flu-like disease that in recent weeks killed dozens of people. Speaking to journalists at a virtual news conference organized by the Africa Centers for Disease Control, warned that the Panzi region of Congo province, where deaths have been reported, is already a vulnerable region, at risk of typhoid, malnutrition, and seasonal flu.
It looks like a respiratory type illness. I said, it looks like. We only received the alert 4 or 5 days ago. So don't think that in 4 or 5 days, we can already identify the mode of transmission.
We already have experience of Mpox. We have experience of COVID-19. So we'd like the population to be made aware of this new disease, if this disease really exists, to prevent it from spreading.
Authorities have so far confirmed 71 deaths, including 27 people who died in hospitals and 44 in the community in the southern Congo province.
There's 2 things happening here. Pulmonary. There's 2 things happening here, pulmonary and hemorrhagic. Let me rephrase that. There's 2 things happening, that it's a respiratory path and a contraction of fluid path that manifests itself to a flu-like illness or a hemorrhagic illness. And part of the hemorrhagic illnesses were associated with the suspected malaria, while part of these cases with the flu-like illness was also malaria. So you have malaria, hemorrhagic, and a flu-like illness as the mosaic of the landscape.
Of the victims at the hospitals, 10 died due to lack of blood transfusion and 17 as a result of respiratory problems. The deaths were recorded between November 10th and 25th in the Panzi health zone of Congo province. Authorities have said that symptoms include fever, headache, cough, and anemia.
We are really on maximum alert. We need to confirm through the diagnostics the suspicions around whether it is a respiratory infection. We must note also that in the Panzi health zone, there was a large typhoid epidemic 2 years ago, and that the malnutrition rates in this health zone are at around 40%. These are vulnerability factors.
Et que le taux de malnutrition, our hope, I say our hope, is first, we got quality samples. Second, when the samples will arrive to, will be tested to Bitchute, the outcome will reflect the true reality of what is going on in this region. For now, we cannot comment more. If we comment more on that, it will be just sharing the remarks with people.
The Democratic Republic of Congo is struggling to launch an Mpox vaccination campaign in Kinshasa due to a vaccine shortage, as cases continue to surge nationwide, particularly among children. head of operations for Congo's Mpox control program, said they currently have only 53,921 doses reserved for high-risk prison populations, but need for 162,000 doses to begin vaccination in Kinshasa's 14 health zones. Vaccinations have started in 6 other provinces, and France has pledged 100,000 doses, with additional shipments expected from Germany and the African Union. However, arrival dates remain uncertain due to administrative delays in processing orders and obtaining import permits. The dire situation in prisons where unsanitary conditions heighten the risk of contagion has led authorities to prioritize limited vaccine supplies for inmates.
Effectivement, dans les maisons carcérales. Indeed, in prisons, since we have had confirmed cases in these prisons, ideally, in addition to frontline healthcare workers, we should vaccinate all contacts in the different rooms. I don't know how they are organized, whether they have dormitories or rooms, wherever confirmed Mpox cases are found, so that all contacts in these prisons are also vaccinated. Que tous les contacts dans ces maisons carcérales soient également vaccinés.
From October 28th to November 2nd, Congo reported more than 1,000 new suspected cases, 45 confirmed cases, and 16 deaths. Cases among children have sharply increased by over 130% since mid-August to 25,600. The call to Save the Children, which warned that children are nearly 4 times more likely to die from Mpox than adults, and called for targeted vaccinations to protect them. Africa Bureau, Beyond World is One.
Okay, so there was a flu-like illness that was taking place, but it wasn't really hemorrhagic. And you have another one that's hemorrhagic. And both of them are attributed to some sort of malaria. There's different types of malaria. Is this now, if it's parasitic, it'd be harder to contract compared to viral. So there's so many people that are getting this, it's probably viral.
More than 15 people have died in northwestern Democratic Republic of Congo because of a mystery virus. According to health experts from the Cottrell Hospital, a regional monitoring center, the symptoms resemble those linked to deadly viruses such as Ebola and dengue. The outbreak started at the end of January. The virus was first discovered in 3 children who ate a bat. More than 400 cases have been reported so far. Let's hear more on this now. I'm very pleased to welcome Margaret Harris, a spokesperson for the World Health Organization. Let's start with some of the basics. What do we know so far about this disease?
So what we do know is that indeed there have been a lot of cases. On the 13th of February, health authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo reported clusters in 2 different villages. Now, even though they're both in Equateur province, which is in the northwest of Congo, the remoteness and the poor infrastructure mean they're actually very separated, and it could be completely different things. Now, you mentioned the report of the children who ate a bat, and there was a cluster of cases, most of whom died in that village. That was Boloko village. They were tested for Ebola in Marburg, and they came back negative. And now we have another cluster of cases in another village called Bomate village. And as I said, it could be completely different things because they may not be epidemiologically linked because the geography is so difficult. Now, the samples had been taken, and none of them came back positive for either Ebola or Marburg, but we're not really satisfied with the sampling. So we've sent 2 WHO epidemiologists up there. They're up there now, and they're overseeing the sampling and getting them back to the laboratories in Kinshasa. So ideally, we'll have a much clearer idea by the end of this week.
At this stage, is it already possible to say whether it seems likely that this is a new virus or possibly something that is already known?
It's most likely to be something that's already known, or it may be even a whole bunch of different things. We do know, for instance, when the medical team.
It's important to understand that you could know something, but it's not normally in the human sphere, ecosystem. All right, there's lots that we know about pathogens that have been cataloged, but not all of them are something that humans are exposed to. So it could be known and a new exposure, so there's a spillover. That's one possibility. It could be something new, novel, that we don't know about that's from nature, or it could be something that's been lab manipulated. There's a lot that's going on in the Congo, though. You got the Mpox, you have this, you have there are problems with HIV, you have Ebola, you have Marburg, you have, and then you have this mystery flu-like illness in some regions and another hemorrhagic unknown. And if the samplings are bad, then it could be Ebola or it could be Marburg. If they go back and get better samples and then retest and they get the same results, then it's an unknown. It's something that it has hemorrhagic capability. There are 3, my understanding is there are 3 hemorrhagic known viruses: dengue, Marburg, and Ebola. But maybe it's parasitic, but that doesn't explain how it's spreading.
They've done rapid diagnostic testing for malaria. 50% have come back positive. So it could be, say, winter viruses on top of malaria, which can kill people very quickly, especially if they're not getting enough to eat and they're not in great condition. We found that in a cluster of cases that was initially represented as a cluster of mysterious disease down in Angola, and it turned out to be a mixed picture. So really, at the moment, we've got a range of what you call differential diagnoses, but the most important thing is to do the full epidemiological investigation and do the testing.
Okay, so we will have to wait on those results, of course. One thing many will be wondering about, though, is the spread of whatever this is, whether it's 2 different things, many different things. More than 400 cases since the end of January and more than 50 deaths. Is that something that is alarming?
Certainly, the case fatality rate is high. We've actually measured it as 12%. We've got more deaths than those that you just mentioned. So, in fact, 45 deaths were recorded in a Bomate village out of 419 cases. So that's a case fatality rate of over 10%. That's very, very high for any kind of outbreak. So yes, we're very.
All right, so we're going to go with, there's a few here. The common ones are Marburg, the ones I mentioned, right? So you got to, so I'm going to read the list here. It's Ebola, dengue, Lassa virus, Marburg virus, Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever virus, and yellow fever virus. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 different types. And the vectors are animals, insects, and mosquitoes, ticks. Now, if they're only looking at Ebola and dengue, what about these other ones? Maybe it's now. Shit. I don't think that they're doing adequate testing. That's the problem. I don't think they're testing right.
So, we want to understand what's going on there. And again, and not only are we investigating, but we're also going up there to have sent a lot of supplies and assistance up there to strengthen the health system, to strengthen the health care, and to strengthen the infection prevention and control activities. That's to stop spread. Even if you don't know what it is, you can stop the spread of something by taking the right measures.
And exactly what measures are those? That's the obvious next question. What do you do to stop whatever this is from spreading further?
And so, for instance, when you've got people in hospital, you make sure that you separate them so that and you make sure that the medical and nursing staff use proper protective equipment to prevent becoming infected themselves. You go to the families of the people who are infected, we don't know, affected, I should say, and advise them on how to prevent, recognize it.
So what they really need to do is do a test panel of these new samples and retest to see if it is any of these ones. Ebola, dengue, Lassa, Marburg, Crimean Congo, or yellow fever. They should do a panel, not just Ebola, not just Marburg.
Symptoms and how to take the standard hygiene measures to ensure that if it is an infectious agent, it's not transmitted easily in the families. And you set up a separation of the people coming in and the rest of the population in the different hospitals and health centres to make sure that people coming in for care are not infecting people who are coming in for other things.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on DW News with those insights. We've been speaking to Margaret Harris, a spokesperson with the World Health Organization.
It's a pleasure.
It's most likely a known virus that's hemorrhagic, but not Ebola or Marburg. That's probably what's happening. I want to take a look at maybe one more. This was 6 hours ago. I already played that one. This was Al Jazeera.
It's a health worker's nightmare. A busy border crossing, thousands of people in close contact and constantly on the move. This medical worker tells people to wash their hands. Health checks and hygiene measures have tightened between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda Ever since multiple cases of the Ebola virus were discovered here in Goma, the Congolese city of more than 2 million people.
People are washing their hands as a precaution due to the outbreak of disease. They tell us that it's spreading through the hands. That's why they are asking us to wash with water mixed with medication.
The virus is passed through bodily fluids, including sweat. There is a vaccine that has been used for quite some time. The World Health Organization says it has a very high success rate. You only need one shot. But there's a problem.
The vaccination is not approved for mass use. It's usually given to those exposed to the virus, and it's also given to the doctors and health workers as they are handling those cases to protect them from contracting the virus.
There is still no officially approved Ebola vaccine on the market, but we're told this one is expected to be officially approved at some stage. There is also a lot of confusion around the virus and a lot of suspicion of foreign health workers here in the Eastern DRC. It's a remote region that has been neglected by the government and torn apart by years of conflict.
It would have been better if our leaders and those who are concerned would give us more information. They have not informed us where we can get this vaccine so that all of us can go and actually get it. But for sure, all of us need to be vaccinated.
This is the second worst Ebola outbreak on record. More than 1,800 people have died of the virus in the DRC over the past year.
Well, that was
But
5
the
years
fact
ago.
that it has now reached a border
I'm
city
sorry.
is what's
I'm sorry.
causing
I
the
saw
renewed
something.
alarm.
It was 5 years ago. So you had Ebola that was 5 years ago. You had a mysterious illness going back 2 months ago that was flu-like, not hemorrhagic. All right, this is my conclusion from analyzing all this. Most likely it's hemorrhagic, and it's a low version compared to Ebola or Marburg, even though you die quickly. And that I think it's one of these other virus ones, Crimean, Congo, yellow, Lassa, dengue, one of them out of that panel. So until I see something from the WHO or some sort of clinic stating that they've tested all these different hemorrhagic viruses and they all came negative, until we see that, we have to assume that's most likely one of those 5, 6, whatever number it is. How many are there? 6 of them. So if they don't test that whole pantheon of viruses that are hemorrhagic, then we have to assume it's one of the hemorrhagic versions. If they do test the pantheon of all of those viruses and they test negative for them, then we're dealing with something that has a hemorrhagic capability that's different. Now, it may be known in the catalog of pathogens, but something that is rare with human exposure. Or it could be something totally new in nature. Or it could be lab created. Now, what is interesting is you have this flu-like kind of outbreak that's taking place in the Congo. You have these hemorrhagic outbreaks that are taking place in the Congo. And the suspicion of some sort of malaria that's taking place in the Congo. So either, if it tests all negative for those hemorrhagics, we may actually have some sort of malaria that's taking place there. But the question is can you get malaria from just eating meat? I don't think so. No. So it could have been that they ate this bat, but they could have been bit by a mosquito and the bat didn't give it to them. It was actually the mosquitoes. So there's 3 things going on: flu-like illness, malaria, hemorrhagic. And until the new samples come in, knowing if those 6 hemorrhagic viruses are positive or not, you really don't know. All right, so my gut feeling is that there's a high probability that's a hemorrhagic virus that is not Ebola or Marburg. And these new cases from the children supposedly eating the bat, probably not a malaria case either. My worry is that there was this paper that came out by Dr. Shi about the HKU5-CoV2, which is respiratory. These kids don't seem to have respiratory. They seem to have hemorrhagic. The point here is that I'm seeing in the news bats, lots of things about bats. And then you have Dr. Shi with the published paper with the HKU5 dealing with a mutated version of a beta coronavirus that's closely it has a close family history towards MERS, even though it has elements of SARS-CoV-2 and beta and the alpha coronavirus. Too many things about bats in the news. Way too many. Okay. Well, I don't have a answer to this. This is an ongoing thing that's going to have to be investigated until they have those tests done on the panel. We won't know for sure. I think that they're not testing these adequately, and the sampling is probably not adequate because of the environment that they're in. So I would say that the probability, if we look at these as probabilities, this outbreak that's going on in the Congo is probably a known hemorrhagic virus that's just not getting sampled or tested properly. Because they may be short of funds and they can only test for Ebola and who knows? We don't know. Are they testing the whole pantheon of hemorrhagic viruses or not? Don't know. But the probability seems to be higher that's hemorrhagic. So let's say 75% probability of that. And then there's a 25% probability that it's not hemorrhagic. And within that, the question is it, is it a known virus, just not normally associated with humans? Or is there something novel? And if it's novel, where did it come from? Is it a gain of function type situation? Or is it from a natural reservoir? So we don't know. And then the question is that if there is a cocktail that's created where it's an influenza beta coronavirus cocktail, would it have hemorrhagic capability? We won't know that either. But if you tested for coronaviruses in the panel, that would come up as a positive. So who knows? Who knows? I suspect it's hemorrhagic. That's just not. But where's the proof? They suspect it is malaria, but where's the proof that's malaria? All right, so that's my conclusion at this, not conclusion, that's my assessment at this moment in time in Congo. It's most likely hemorrhagic virus that is not Ebola or Marburg. But they do have Marburg case outbreak. They do have Ebola case outbreak. Has something mutated where it's, but it should have tested positive. But again, did they do the proper sampling? Did they do the proper testing? So, when there's incompetence in any field, it's hard to know what the real facts are. But my gut feeling, I would say 75% probability it's hemorrhagic. But why? What's going on there? 25% that it's not hemorrhagic and it's something else. All right. I'm gonna stop this transmission and start a new one for my regular show. But please help support my work by making sure you subscribe to my channel or channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube: Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. I also have means for you to watch live streams, so you can watch on YouTube, you can watch on Rumble, you can watch on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description of this video. And you can listen to podcasts. You can listen to Podomatic, Apple Podcast, or even the audio files that I've uploaded onto my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, underneath broadcast radio. And help support my work. All right, take a look at what I offer on the website, but also, if you could, please donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. It's through the donations and the people that take a look at what I offer on my website that helps support my work. So please help support the free content that I create. Today was a little different because I wanted to take a look at what the news was saying about what's going on in the Congo. And there's some incompetence that's going on in the Congo in terms of sampling and in terms of testing adequately the samples. So there's a lot of unknown. And here's a case of, incompetence leads to a lot of confusion. We got to get rid of that confusion to get to the facts. I suspect that it is some sort of hemorrhagic virus. That's my gut feeling on this. All right. But where's the real data? All right. So until then, we won't know. Maybe they'll publish something today, tomorrow, next week that will get a little bit better resolution on what the hell's going on in the Congo. But there is a 25% thing here, is that maybe we're dealing with something new, and then why is it new? What is it? Who knows? All right. I don't think it's the 4th cocktail now. Think walking through this, I don't think it's the 4th cocktail. I think it has something to do with some sort of hemorrhagic, but maybe they're, hemorrhagic viruses have been part of the weapon program, bioweapon program, for sure. Until we get adequate testing, until we get adequate sampling, there's just too much confusion to understand what's really going on in the Congo. So that's my assessment on it. There's no big revelation here, but there is a concern that I have that, I'm seeing a lot of news about bats, right? And so that's going to create fear in the public that will lead to inoculation programs around the world that could lead to other negative externalities. So please help support my work by making sure you go to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take a look at what I offer, and please donate. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.